everybody, it's Sophie and Marco Dish on the Movies. Today we have a treat. It's Marco's turn, but he's going to say what he found to be the 10 worst movies of 2018?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead, Marco.
Number 10 is Creed 2. And I say that as someone who was very excited to watch this movie, but it was ultimately probably the most disappointing movie of the entire year because of the potential. Everyone said it was a great movie, but there were some people when it came out who said there were some problems, and so I kind of stayed away from it for a while. But when I finally watched it, there's a ton of things about this movie. Number one, I don't care about these characters. I don't care about Michael B. Jordan. I don't care about that annoying feminist woman from Men in Black. I don't care about anyone besides Sylvester Stallone, Ivan Drago, and Ivan Drago's son. And it's weird because this movie actually made me want to see just a movie about them, even though they're supposed to be the villains of the movie. I think the script of this movie was okay. It had a lot of comedy in it, which was kind of weird for a Rocky movie to have that much comedy. But it also, I don't know, it felt like it was just Rocky 2, but with it didn't feel that original. It felt very constructed, like just over manipulated, like it's just another Rocky sequel. And honestly, I don't want to watch Creed 3 because Creed 1 was just okay and Creed 2 has really crapped the bed. And the worst part about the movie is the music. The music in this movie completely undercuts any sort of emotional value that you get out of it. There are certain scenes where it could have been really cool, such as the desert training sequence, but it ends up being stupid because they decided to play rap music, Rocky theme. They decided to redo the theme of Rocky, but with rap music. And I was like, Black Panther and Creed 2 they took two different approaches to the music. Black Panther took the music and made it really good and made it this drumming and probably one of the best soundtracks of the year, but then Creed 2 did the stereotypical thing. Have this rap music, have this terrible music that you can't even understand what they're saying. It's too low, you can't hear it. It has no emotional connection to the scene. And what do you know? The same person who did Black Panther's music did Creed 2's music. Isn't that weird, Sophie?
Maybe they told him to do that. You never know about the powers to be and how much freedom you have. But I don't know, did they get an award for the Black Panther music, or did somebody else?
They got nominated for it.
Okay.
But Creed 2 did not, and there's a reason. And the only music that was actually good in this movie was the music at the end when they were playing the real Rocky theme song. That was the only good music in the whole movie. Another big issue with this movie was the directing. The directing was terrible. The directing was completely impersonal. It just felt like someone who doesn't know how to direct. He looks at the script and then he just shoots the script. It doesn't feel like it was directed by someone. It doesn't feel like it was directed by someone who deserves to direct a Rocky movie. And so, huge disappointment. Number 9 is Sicario 2. This was another huge disappointment, and that was one of the big themes of 2018 was being disappointed from franchises. That's a continuing theme within movies as you have these franchises. They do sequel, and they're all disappointing, and they all suck. And with this one, I stayed away from it once again because I was told by people that it was bad. They said and they said some really weird things about it. I'm not even going to go into that because that's a whole separate video. But this movie, it showed the entire first half of the movie within the trailer. It showed the entire first half of the movie, the entire hour or more. And I felt gypped. I felt like I was wasting my time. I could have just watched the trailer. Because this movie doesn't... It takes a weird turn. It doesn't really have that much action. There's not really that much to it that's very good. Creed 2 is better because at least it has some good scenes. But Sicario 2 is just... ugh. There's one great scene, though, or one great sequence, and that's, spoiler alert, it's basically the last 15 minutes, the stuff that they weren't allowed to spoil in the trailers. Which, that's also a big issue nowadays with trailers. The editors, they put every single good scene in the trailer, so you already see the movie before you watch it, and that's the case with this movie. The last 15 minutes are pretty good, and it actually made me excited for a sequel, so that's why it's only number 9. Number 8 is Ant-Man and the Wasp. Sophie's disappointed. She needs to see both Ant-Mans. And so right off the bat, there's a forced relationship between Ant-Man and the Wasp. They have no chemistry together whatsoever. She's stern, she's boring, she's uninteresting, and then he's really funny, charismatic, and exciting. And this movie, number 1, it has no villain. Number 2, it has no heroes. And number 3, it's boring, it's uninteresting. It's a generic MCU movie. It follows the same MCU formula. It has a joke per minute, and it's just garbage. I would have put it lower, but at least it had some funny moments because of Paul Rudd. He deserves a better script.
Yeah.
Number 7 is Black Klansman. This movie is lucky that I don't put it as number 1 worst. This movie was horribly directed, and most importantly, it was horribly written and horribly acted. The main actor is Denzel Washington's son. He can't act at all.
Aww.
He says that he can do 2 different voices. He can do a black person voice, and then he can do a white person voice. And guess what? They both sound the same generic voice. He has nothing. He has no talent whatsoever from this movie. And I think it was a complete mistake to hire him. Number 2, you have Spike Lee, the racist, gross director who just wants to insert his agenda into everything. He even said in an interview he made this movie because he hates the president. That's literally what he said in the interview. Is the reason why he made this movie. He didn't make this movie to tell the story of the book, to tell the true story. He made this movie as an FU to the president.
I thought the story was interesting.
Well, he took the story.
The original story.
He took the original story and inserted his agenda into it. And for example, in real life, there was never any bomb threat. There was never any violence. There was literally the stuff that happens in this movie is inaccurate. None of it happened. And so he's making up crimes and he's making up violence in this KKK story, because it turns out the KKK chapter that he infiltrated was the least violent in the entire country. And they never committed any sort of crimes whatsoever. And so he actually inserted that fake history into this movie to make it look like they went after this young girl and they wanted to blow her up, and they wanted to do this and kill people and do that and start a war, and it's false. It's literally false. It's race bait. There's so many different examples of race baiting in this movie, and just horrible agenda pushing, female agenda pushing, black agenda pushing, and just to the point of where you're like, is this a movie or is this like a lecture from some racist? At the end, the ending really ruins it, because what they do is they start showing news footage, and they start, really hammering, not even hammering in an agenda, they're just showing it right in front of you and trying to make you feel something. It's just, ugh. I hated this movie to pieces. I'll never watch it again, but at least it had some good acting from the white actor. Isn't that ironic that the only good acting in the movie was from the white actors? It was from Adam Driver and Topher Grace. They were the only good actors in the whole movie. And I think that's a huge embarrassment.
So this is based on a book or a screenplay?
It's based on a book. And he took the book and he completely fabricated every single thing that happened.
Maybe people
and changed
should read
it.
the book then.
They should.
They want to get a good story, because I've heard the story's really good. So.
Well, the true story, not the one that was created to race bait people. Yeah.
So maybe you should read the book and forget about the movie.
Yeah, forget about this movie, this race bait, sickening agenda movie. So NumberSix, we have another agenda movie, Sorry to Bother You. This movie is like Twilight Zone meets, I don't know.
Well, what's the movie?
I already told you.
I didn't hear it.
It's called Sorry to Bother You.
Oh.
And
I didn't know that was the name of the movie. I thought you were saying that.
Well, this movie, ultimately, its biggest issue is the fact that it's boring. It goes on for way too long. It has that horrible, annoying feminist woman from Men in Black, again, in this movie. The main character isn't very good. He's a good actor, and he delivers some of the best stuff in the movie, but everything, it's trying to be like a satire. I don't know what it is, but it just was a train wreck.
Oh.
It wasn't as good as it could have been. The director, he's a good director and he's very creative, but this movie was just a failure. I mean, it's hard to explain. It has some good ideas in it, but the ideas are horribly executed. And then, especially the twists near the end, and spoiler alert, it's one of those movies where the main character dies. In this case, the main character just completely transforms into an animal, and it feels like the whole movie is a waste. The movies where the main character dies or they change like that, they always feel like a waste to me. And especially in this story where the whole movie is about anti-corporations, but then they add in this race stuff too. And it feels like instead of just making this another race bait movie, they should have stuck more to the corporation aspect, which was ultimately the best part of the movie. The best idea in the movie was the anti-corporation stuff. But that was ultimately overshadowed by the race stuff. And then by the horribly incorrigible and boring and terrible Men in Black woman. So NumberFive, now we're getting to the really bad movies. Incredibles 2. This movie is literally just The Incredibles, but with every single aspect of the movie flipped over its head. And I don't understand why Sophie likes it, because It's The Incredibles, but it's deconstructed. The main villain is boring, and then number two, you learn the same lesson that you did in the first movie. They start off not working as a family, and then at the end of the movie, they work as a family to defeat the bad guy. That's already happened in the first movie. And then the main superhero of the movie is basically only the wife. Which again, feminist agenda, feminist agenda, feminist agenda. With her, she's handed everything. She's just handed everything, and it's so boring to watch. In the first one, you had to watch them all struggle to solve crime. You had to watch them struggle to maintain balance with normal life and then superhero stuff. In this movie, she just gets everything for her on a silver platter. She doesn't have to work for anything. And it's sickening to watch. Because you know that the whole movie is an agenda movie by all the stuff that they do in it. I don't even want to go into it because it's just annoying to think about. It's so forgettable. It's so disastrous, and it's a huge disappointment, just like all these other franchise movies. So I want to be done with talking about it. Number 4 is The Bad Samaritan.
What? The baddest American?
Just leave it alone, Sophie. So this movie, number 1, it starts off with a protagonist that you don't like because he's a thief and he's breaking into someone's house so that he can steal their stuff. So that's number 1. Number 2, it has a good concept, but it wastes the concept and it ruins it and it doesn't do anything interesting with it. And number 3, David Tennant does a horrible accent in this movie. He like a really weird accent. His character is boring. So all the characters in this movie suck, and the story sucks too. I really regret watching this movie. I wish I never watched it. But at least it had a good concept, and it might have been good if they had done different things. Number 3, stop rubbing your hands, Sophie. Number 3 is Unsane. I watched this movie because it was shot on an iPhone. And unfortunately, it was shot on an iPhone because it's a piece of crap that belongs on an iPhone. Away from the public. Just forget about this movie. The music starts off, you think it's going to be this really interesting original score, but then the music just takes over the movie and is irritating. The plot is predictable. The main villain is boring, but there's one good scene, so that's fine. The acting is pretty poor. Number 2 is Christopher Robin. With all these movies, you hear a pattern. There was one good scene, there were a couple of good things. With Christopher Robin, there was literally one good scene. And it was the opening scene where he's having tea and cake with all the characters that he created as a kid. I thought that was a great start, but I don't know, they tried to make this movie dark. They took all the color out. This is a horrible biography movie. They should be ashamed that they made this. I had to turn it off halfway through because I was starting to fall asleep while watching it. So yeah, Christopher Robin, huge piece of crap. And then, last but not least, the worst movie of 2018, which I'm sure no one's, maybe a couple of people, but not really anyone's going to agree with. This movie has nothing good in the entire movie. And that's saying a lot. Usually I say, this movie has one good, not this movie. It's the Coen Brothers movie on Netflix called The Ballad of Buster Scruggs, and this movie is an anthology movie. It's a wannabe anthology movie, but all the stories suck. They all feel like stories that no one's put in any effort into. They all feel like little like dime stories that you could just, give someone a dime and they'll tell you a little story. They're horrible. The first one, you have this guy who can't stop singing, and that gets annoying really fast, and then he gets killed and he's still singing after he's dead. That made me want to plug my ears. And then the second story, what was the second story? I can't remember. Oh yeah, the second story is about James Franco wanting to rob a bank, and then he gets caught, and then he escapes, and then he gets caught again, and then he gets executed.
Oh.
And
he gets executed?
And the whole story was actually just a lead up to a joke. And guess what? Not only everyone spoiled the joke online, but also the title of the segment is called The Joke. So the whole story is meaningless because it's just leading up to this worthless joke that's not even really that funny. NumberThree, they're all NumberTwo, by the way, all of these segments. The next one is a horribly depressing segment about Liam Neeson and then this other guy, and they perform together. The guy that performs, he has no arms or legs, and what he does is he puts makeup on and he tells stories, and people pay to see that. I don't know why they pay to see it, because I was watching, I wanted to fall asleep. And Liam Neeson is with them, and then basically what happens is Liam Neeson discovers that people don't want to see him anymore, and then he throws them off a bridge, and then buys another contraption that'll make him more money. And I hated that. It's another one where there's no point to it. The main character dies. And that's another thing, everyone. Whenever you see an anthology movie, make sure to take note. Does the main character die? Because that's literally what happens in every single anthology story, every single short story imaginable. Oh, what happens? The main character dies. Whoop-de-doo. Wow, that's really original. I've never seen that done before. And you feel like there's no point to it. This movie is a huge waste of time. I didn't even finish it because I was so mad that I had wasted my time watching this horrible movie. Horrible. Horrible writing. Horrible everything. Horrible directing. Horrible acting. Horrible acting. How is that possible from these types of actors? I was very disappointed in this movie. And what do you know? It's a Netflix original movie. Not a surprise to me. Netflix original movie, Safi. That's what these movies are worthless. These movies are straight to DVD. They're not even straight to DVD. I mean, Puppet Master was a straight to VHS movie, and that movie is better than any Netflix original movie ever in existence. I'm so sick of these stupid, irritating, and wasteful Netflix original movies wasting our time, wasting everyone's money, wasting these people's talent. These Netflix original movies need to die. So that's the end. Top 10 worst movies. And next I'll be doing top 10 best movies. Hopefully I'll be a lot calmer and I won't have to just keep saying the word agenda a million times. But I have a feeling the word agenda will return.
Well, I would like to see, it would be interesting to see, I'll put it that way. You talked about a movie where you liked the agenda.
Well, I said in a review that I liked Dark Phoenix, even though it felt like it had some agenda stuff in it. And so that's fine. If your movie has like a little agenda stuff in it, and I still can ignore that and like the rest of the movie, that's okay with me. And I really like Dark Phoenix, so there you go. So goodbye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.